3, 2, 1. What's happening, guys? It's Logan Robinson from Here the Spear, presented to you by NoleGameday.com. We're here live on a wonderful, fantastic Thursday evening, January 16th, 2025. We've got a handful of things to talk about this evening. We've got a couple of commitments to Florida State in its 2025 class. The Seminoles still not done there. We're going to talk some recruiting, big recruiting weekend coming up. And then we've got also some new jersey numbers that have been released with the newcomers. Also have some measurements with that as well. Some current players have changed their jersey numbers as well. Florida State's not going to be having a spring showcase. Veezy's going to give his opinion on why it should not matter whatsoever. But then also, too, we're going to go into the rivals area, and we're going to talk about Carson, Beck going to Miami and what that means to Florida State. And at the very end of this, before we end off with some basketball, we're going to pick our 5 transfers who will make the biggest impact for this year coming up for the Seminoles. But before we get started, I want to introduce Austin Veezy, our lead basketball writer there in the middle, and Dustin Lewis. As you can tell, his head can fit inside of the dimensions, just barely. It's holding on for dear life. But Dustin Lewis, our editor-in-chief at NoleGameday.com. Gentlemen, we are in the dry period of the off season, but we're still here and we got a show to do.
Hey, well, it can get a lot worse than talking about 2 commitments and, having the updated roster. Trust me, wait a couple more months before you start complaining, buddy.
He's got a point, because even in 2 more months, there won't be any basketball to talk about. And obviously that's the big talk of the town right now.
It is the big talk of the town after some altercations. That's what I love to see right here. We were talking about in the production meeting. Got me to keep an eye on some FSU basketball late at night. That tipped off at 9 o'clock?
9:05, technically.
Yeah, it was a late one.
And that game didn't end until 11:15?
Almost 11:30. I mean, there were so many fouls. It was insane.
It was ugly. Yeah. No. But of course, we'll definitely talk about the scuffle there at the end of the game. And then Austin is going to run through the rest of the little bit of the schedule here that seems like the Seminoles have a chance to go on a run, who are currently 12-5 on the season. So Leonard Hamilton and his squad, it's a fiery one and certainly is a fun one to cover right now for Veezy after this last stretch of years that has been pretty brutal. But before we get started, I appreciate everybody tuning in. If you're on YouTube right now, definitely hit that like button, trying to get 100 likes before the end of the night. We've got a handful of things that we're going to go through, but make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get notified every time we release a new video. And also to hit that bell. We've got lots of videos going out throughout this off season. It is dry. It's kind of boring right now, but like Dustin said, things are going to start picking up. We've got Tour of Duty beginning on, really tomorrow morning. Around this time, 12 hours, literally, they're going to be going at it bright and early, and with this new coaching staff and everything. So we should start getting some updates and some nuggets, things that we'll be bringing up here on the show and on our YouTube channel. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Let's go ahead and get started. Florida State landing an offensive lineman, this time a flip from FIU with Chavez Sandman Thompson. First off, gentlemen, we've got so many nicknames that is like coming into this new squad of a football team. You've got Pot Roast with Terrence Knight. Of course, you've got Deuce as well. You've got Sandman. I feel like you got Squirrel. We got Squirrel White. That's his actual name, but Squirrel,
you got a Sack with James Williams.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many nicknames, so it's going to be fun this season to be putting those out on social media. But sure enough, Florida State adding to Herb Hand's offensive line group, primarily probably going to be at the center position. He's a versatile guy. Yep. And, he's played multiple positions. D-Lou, right guard, left guard, right tackle. But with his size of 6'1", 310, looking like Florida State might have found a high school player that they can develop, guys. Maybe someone that they can actually work on that could potentially be a starter for them in like 2 years or so, 2 to 3 years. What a shocker. What a time to be alive, maybe.
We'll see, but I mean, either way, this is a recruit that Florida State was already familiar with. He'd been in Tallahassee a couple times. I think his official visit this past weekend was actually his first trip to town in about 2 years. But he knew Gus Malzahn and Herb Hand dating back to their time at UCF, took an official visit to the Knights last summer. And, with those two coming over to Florida State staff, they continued to make him a priority. And like you said, Logan, Florida State looking for a guy to groom and potentially be the center of the future. Obviously, you're going to be relying on a graduate transfer this season and Luke Pettibon from Wake Forest, but you need guys behind there. And, doesn't have necessarily elite size, 6'10", 310 pounds, but, he's someone.
Holy smokes, 6'10"?
6'10"?
Holy
6'1". 6'1".
That's some
My bad.
elite size right there.
6'1",
Woo,
310 pounds.
Sorry, Pettibon, you're done starting. Put this kid in now.
It sounds like Herb Hand is comfortable and thinks that this guy can develop into something at the college level. So you get the flip over from FIU. Sandman, like Logan said, started at center this past season at Cocoa High School, helped lead them to their third consecutive state championship. He was a teammate of FSU wide receiver signee Javon Boggs, who we all know had a outstanding senior campaign. So those two guys are coming over to Tallahassee together. And he's also got a wrestling background, which I think is important, especially in the trenches. A lot of strength. You're learning about leverage and different things like that. So that can only be helpful for him as he does make the transition to FSU in the summer.
You know what I like the most here? Just looking at some of his film before I filmed his commitment video, which they do love to do these announcements at dinner time. So it's just fantastic timing. Either I'm in the shower or cooking. Dustin, this always happens to you and I. But anyways, looking at some of his film, he's got a mean streak to him. Physical guy, like you said, has wrestling background as well, looking to get a state championship later in the spring. But I'm excited about camp. Definitely when the pads come on, when Kevin Wynn comes in, and when those two are able to battle it out, I think that's going to be something really fun to watch. But yeah, 6'1". We'll see how Coach Storms can work with him as well. But the one thing,
6'10".
Yeah, not 6'10". That would be fun. That would be an incredible size.
I don't know that it was
a basketball center, not a.
Yeah,
football
I don't know that it would be that fun considering Castellanos is 5'9".
Yeah, I was gonna say if Pettibon wasn't here and you had to throw the true freshman 6'10", I mean, yeah, no, would not be able to see over his. That'd be a true Kyler Murray moment there. But I think it's important though. Florida State, they obviously really liked him. I mean, the flip was important. He was previously too, right, Dustin, committed to the Oregon Ducks. So Dan Lanning and them liked his attributes and talents, but it goes to show Herb Hand, it seems like they see a lot in him and they can develop him. And that's something that I think that we're going to have to start seeing. We have to wait until 2025 season goes through until we can see it on the field for FSU. But one thing about Herb Hand, though, and his past stops and what he's been able to do in his career, there's a reason why he's still coaching, is that development is one of the good things about him. That's one of his strong suits. And it kind of gets you more excited to see maybe they're not highly ranked as other guys, but I hate to tell you guys, I mean, we've seen blue chip guys, potential like 5 stars come in through the door under Alex Atkins, and that nothing ever happened to where we saw them as being potential true starters in their second year or third year. That's why, whenever they're landing some of these guys that don't have the stars and all this kind of stuff, I just look at the tape more than anything, and it's hard to really evaluate offensive linemen in the first place anyways, definitely because it usually takes them a year or two when you're in the trenches.
Yep, you never know how the bodies are going to continue to progress and grow after high school. So, a guy who was an unranked recruit may very well end up being a star at the college level. It's just kind of hard to project some of those things. But, we've seen Florida State take an aggressive approach to reshaping the offensive line room this offseason, obviously bringing in 4 transfers with starting experience. Then you're seeing these high school guys come in behind them, Sandman being the third prep offensive line pledge for Florida State in the 2025 class. And sounds like they've got a pretty good shot to land 4-star offensive tackle Chasten Brown, who was committed as well to UCF when Herb Hand and Malzahn were there. And Florida State might be the front runner in that recruitment. Sounds like he's going to take an official visit to FSU later this month and, maybe announce that decision during the traditional signing day in early February. But he's a blue chip prospect, has a outstanding frame, and a true offensive tackle at the college level, and would be a nice add for Florida State to round this out.
We'll get to another commitment here in just a second, but Gerber on YouTube is asking, how do you feel about the 2025 class so far? They're currently ranked number 18th in the country. I thought they did a good job with what they went through this last season, going 2-10, and all of the coaching staff changes and bringing in 2 new coordinators. The fact that they were able to land some guys in pivotal positions that they needed, I thought was really important. But Dustin, you're more of the inside here and our recruiting guy. What are your thoughts on the 2025 class? Because they're still not done yet, as we're seeing right now.
I think it's gotten a lot better since the early signing period. Florida State obviously had a lot of guys jump off the ship that were highly rated recruits during the 2-10 season. But we did see them close and make some flips down the line there during the early signing period, getting Tylan Lee, flipping him from Ole Miss, the 4-star defensive end, Jesse Harold as well. We saw them able to get Javon Boggs. And then, arguably the biggest win of the early signing period, Florida State flipping Chroma from Georgia, who's a guy who could potentially come in and make an immediate impact in 2025, holding on to Kevin Wynn. So, for the most part, I thought they did a good job addressing what they needed through the prep class and, with those junior college guys that they're bringing in as well. Jordan Scott, who they were able to flip from Arizona State, 6'7" wide receiver. And then, we saw them continue to hit positions of need in the transfer portal. And, we'll see how things continue to shake out. I think Florida State, like I said, has a good shot to add Chasten Brown. That would put them around 39 incoming new players across the high school class and the transfer portal class, and might dip back in there in the spring to get a couple more guys as well.
I want to bring up another question, and I'm going to combine these together because it is in our thumbnail for the video tonight. But Florida State is putting themselves in some pretty good positions, and of course there's a big name here with Ty Haywood, who's a really talented offensive lineman, one of the top ones left in the 2025 class that has not signed yet and plans to do so in February during the traditional signing day period. But let's start first real quick. Zahir Mathis, someone that just visited this last weekend to Florida State, one of the top 10 edge players in the 2025 class, 6'6", 225 pounds, formerly committed to Ohio State and the Buckeyes, but ranked as the sixth best edge player in the country per the 247 Sports Composite. Seems like Florida State has put themselves in a good spot. Michigan, though, is probably your biggest competition overall, but then UCLA is also in the mix. But it seems like Florida State, Tony White, also to Terrence Knighton after leaving Tallahassee, they put themselves into a serious consideration for Zahir Mathis, and that's why I think it's going to be potentially something to keep an eye on whenever going into signing day, whenever he makes his decision.
Yeah, they're taking their shot. He was in Tallahassee for his official visit last weekend. Sounds like everything went well with the trip, but Florida State, obviously going to have to hold off, like you said, Michigan, who is set to host them later this month, and also UCLA. It sounds like he's going to be there for an official visit this weekend. And Maryland could be an outside contender as well. But I mean, Florida State firmly in this fight. I think they did everything they could do to set the tone with that first official visit. And, obviously when it's coming down to these big time recruits, NIL and things of that nature are going to be a factor as well. But Florida State has proved that they can be competitive in the market, with how they're able to hold on to Kevin Wynn. Like I was saying earlier, flipping Chroma, they've proved that they're willing to spend when they need to. And, we'll see what they're able to do in this recruitment the next couple of weeks. Because like you said, he's going to sign during National Signing Day in February.
And then for Ty Haywood, a 5-star offensive lineman, ranked as the number 4 overall tackle and the 247 Sports Composite. Currently, most predictions have him going to Alabama, but I mean, now it's changed enough to where Michigan, it's going to come down to big time money, and Michigan, like we were just talking about Zahir Mathis and NIL, they play a big factor in it. But Florida State's still here. Seems like they've got a decent spot at it, but Herb Hand and the rest of the NIL collectives, how many there are now behind Florida State, trying to work battles in, and whoever else is throwing money at them. That's probably your biggest competition, is the NIL part more than anything.
But again, I mean, this is one where you're talking about the money is worth it. A 5-star offensive tackle, you're trying to rebuild your offensive line room. I mean, this could be a guy who could be the future of that position group in the future if Florida State is able to land him. Recently decommitted from Alabama. He's not going to be signing with the Crimson Tide. It sounds like this one is between Michigan, FSU, and then maybe a couple of outside contenders. I think the big thing is Florida State had him in for his official visit last summer. So he's not able to take another official visit to Tallahassee. Might be tough to get him over from the Texas area, but we'll see if Florida State is able to get him on campus before he decides to sign in February. Michigan set to host him, I believe, this weekend, and we'll see what the Wolverines are able to do. But it sounds like it'd be a surprise if they don't win out for his commitment at this time. But if Florida State is able to get him on campus, they've already done an in-person meeting. Mike Norvell, I think Herb Hand went out there as well to meet him in Texas and speak with him. We'll see what Florida State's able to do. I don't think you can ever count them out considering what we've seen over the last couple of weeks.
Yep, got some big competition there. And to me, Florida State, if, like you said, I would allocate a lot of money to the offensive line. Lot of it, please. And I think they've learned their lesson after the last couple of years of having to put a lot of money towards areas that I don't think you necessarily needed to. Learn now, and now utilize that money in a smart way. But while doing that, I'll take another defensive tackle too while we're at it. Why not? Let's jump into another commitment, gentlemen. Antonio Cromartie Jr. is a Seminole. I think this is a really cool story here. As we know, Antonio Cromartie, his dad, senior, being a big-time standout at Florida State, then also to excelling even more at the NFL level. But Cromartie primarily at the safety position through high school, where he played. He got 85 tackles this last season, 4 forced fumbles, 4 pass breakups, and 1 interception, where he also helped lead his team to a 14-0 record and made it to a state championship, which they sadly lost. But definitely a smaller guy here, 5'11", 170 pounds. I believe his dad spent some time with a few interviews talking about his son and saying that he's going to be a late bloomer and a guy that's probably going to grow a little bit later on, and wasn't ranked at the time before the commitment, right, Dustin, on 247 Sports, but ranked as a 3-star defensive back coming in to the Seminoles, and probably someone that you don't expect to maybe make an immediate impact or much of an impact, but someone that, maybe Coach Surtain and with some development can do some good coaching in, and you just never know where it can go. But I think just overall as a story, and just also to following his dad, also following his son, because he's always interactive with us on Instagram since he was in middle school, always messaging us and, just wanting us to put out some stuff about him. But I think it's just a really cool story because they're always taking pictures around the program a ton all throughout the years, like the last 5 years, and just to see it come into fruition. And I believe he got the offer on Christmas Day too of this year. So just overall awesome storyline. I know people are, first want to know the stars and how highly talented he is and stuff, but he's a guy that helped lead his team to a 14-0 record. And he's someone too, and made it to a state championship, and someone that can maybe Coach Surtain can work with and help develop. But just overall, it's a win-win for the Seminoles, and definitely important for a legacy recruit to come back and put on the garnet and gold, in my opinion.
Yeah, a third legacy recruit that Florida State has been able to add to the roster this offseason. And, like you said, a little bit of a late bloomer, but, I think back to 2 years ago or so, whenever he was coming on his visits to Florida State, and, he was about 5'5". So he's definitely added some more size coming out of his senior season. Played pretty good competition over there in the state of Georgia at Carrollton High School. Like you said, Logan, competed on the team that started out 14-0, made it to the state championship, came up short, but had a pretty good senior season. Maybe doesn't have the size and the speed of his father coming in, but when you think about the roster moving to 105 this offseason, I think this is a solid pickup for Florida State, and we'll see what Cromartie Jr. is able to do at the college level, because obviously he's coming in with a chip on his shoulder, and I don't think you can ever count out a guy that has those garnet and gold bloodlines.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm sure his dad is ecstatic also to the entire family. Just seeing that photo of them with the rest of the coaching staff was a really cool thing. But Florida State still, like we've been talking about, not done in this 2025 class, but still looking ahead as well. Florida State's got to do some work here in this 2026 class. They are currently still holding a top 10 class, but it's still so early on, and they're bringing in a lot of visitors this weekend. For what you still call it? It's a junior day weekend.
It's what you call it, but
Okay.
obviously, you're bringing in guys from a multitude of classes. It's not just
Yeah.
going to be 2026 on campus. You'll have guys from 2027, 2028.
Mhm.
I think we're starting to get into the time where we might start seeing some 2029 kids, which just blows my mind. I mean, I remember when we were back working on 2017. Here we are at 2026. It's wild.
Yeah, it is insane. But I just wanted to point out a few of them. I know we'll probably get a better list. Make sure you stay tuned to NoleGameday.com. We'll probably get a roundup of some guys that are attending, but also too, just make sure you're there at NoleGameday.com, because there are just some pieces of, once we hear news of some guys coming in to visit, Dustin and the rest of the crew are usually putting up updates over there. But I wanted to note on a few things. It just feels like a theme overall to me, Dustin, that, and I love it, is pass rush heavy and bringing in talent that can get back there to the backfield, that also had some really good production at the high school level. You got Catrell Webb coming in. That is a 4-star defensive end, 6'2", 230 pounds, ranked as the number 35th recruit in the state of Georgia. And then also too, I have him on my notes here, but now it's just going to Trenton Henderson, another highly ranked defensive end. And the 2026 class has had some visits to Auburn, Miami, Tennessee, Mississippi State, and Vanderbilt. Also played at the school that Travis Hunter played at, which is also a little scary. But those times have moved on. We're moved on from that as well. But Trenton Henderson, a really talented defensive end. He had 50 tackles, 18 tackles for loss, 10 sacks last season, and 6 pass deflections. It just seems pass rush heavy, and I'm all about it. I mean, that's something that Florida State lacked in all across the board, but development too is something that I think we'll see an increase in with Terrence Knight in the helm, and just seeing what Florida State overall needs to do to get to the backfield is really important to me. It seems to me too, just back in the day, Mike Norvell and the staff was really after some of the big names and some of the ones that, you were battling with some of those bigger schools and you just kind of lost out and you came in second or third place. But now there's some names that Florida State certainly can be in the contention of landing, and actually are really, really nicely ranked and all that kind of stuff. It's just something that I think Florida State is making a big focus on moving forward, along with what they're adding on the offensive line under Herb Hand.
I will just say, I think you got your notes mixed up. Webb is actually the one that plays at Collins Hill High School, where Hunter played at. Trenton Henderson is the number 1 defensive end in the state of Florida, and I think that's big to get him on campus, meet with Terrence Knighton and the new defensive coaches, and hopefully begin to get yourself in position to get an official visit whenever the summer rolls around. But yeah, you've got those two, 4-star defensive end Xavier Griffin Haynes from the state of North Carolina, someone that UNC and Bill Belichick have been making a pretty heavy priority. That was one of Belichick's first visits once he took the job with the Tar Heels. And then also on the offensive side of the trenches, Kenan Pickett, a 4-star offensive tackle, will be in Tallahassee, and a couple of other guys as well. 4-star running back Amari Clemens, who named FSU his public leader during his last trip. He'll be back on campus. You've got the number 1 linebacker in the 2026 class, 5-star Xavier Griffin, who is currently committed to USC. Obviously, FSU making a change there at the linebacker position, shifting over John Papuchis and moving on from Randy Shannon. And then in the defensive backfield, 4-star.
I was going to say whatever it takes, whatever you got to do.
4-star defensive back Samari Matthews and 4-star defensive back Caden Hall among the visitors expected in this weekend. And, there's going to be some other guys as well. Like Logan said, stay tuned to the website. We'll probably have a longer list here as Saturday draws a little bit closer. But this is just an important opportunity, to get these guys on campus, meet with guys who might be new position coaches and, continue to foster relationships with coaches that they've already met before. And especially now with a lot of these guys being rising seniors and, the way this recruiting process works with the majority of top prospects signing in December, it's important to get this early, start getting those official visits lined up and put yourself in a position to land elite talent coming off a pretty poor year in Tallahassee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder what this message is coming from Mike Norvell and the rest of the coaching staff. Like, what is being told to them? And I'm interested to see just some of more of these interviews that are coming out from recruits as well, because it's not a message of, hey, we're rebuilding. You can't do that. You can't do that again. You just went undefeated in your regular season the year prior, and you should have had that opportunity of a postseason playoff run. You just didn't happen. But then completely falls on its face the next season. And I just would love to be a fly in the room on what this kind of message is being sent from Mike Norvell. And, we'll get like a taste of a little bit of, what has changed from Mike Norvell just overall as a program when we see Tour of Duty at the end of it. But it's an interesting kind of time that Mike Norvell and this Florida State football program is. And just interested to see how things go there. But so far, the 2026 class is looking solid. Still so early, but I'd like to see, just give me pass rush and like I was trying to allude to there, whatever it takes for the number one linebacker. Whatever it takes, whatever you got.
And I mean, I think the big thing right now for Florida State in 2026 is just holding on to the commitment of 4-star quarterback Brady Smigel, because once Florida State moved on from Alex Atkins and brought in Gus Malzahn, he took his first visit elsewhere to Washington. This is a guy who plays his prep career out there in the state of California. So, obviously the Huskies are a little bit closer in FSU. He's picked up an offer from South Carolina. I know Mike Norvell and Gus Malzahn went out there to meet with him and hoping to get him back in Tallahassee in the near future and, just make sure that he's comfortable with the transition that Florida State is making in their offense. And, I will say, Smigel had a pretty good junior campaign, showed off a lot more ability as a rusher and a dual threat than he had previously in his career. And, it seems like he's still a good fit for what Florida State wants to do on offense, despite the change at offensive coordinator.
Sweet. So like Dustin said, make sure you're tuned in to NoleGameday.com. He does a fantastic job of keeping you guys updated, definitely on busy weekends ahead like this on the recruiting side. So make sure you're tuned there. Let's talk about some new jersey numbers. Before we do that, got over 100, almost 150 here, I think, on YouTube. Hit that like button down below. It helps go out to more FSU fans in here. And also, too, if you have any questions or topics you would like us to discuss, throw them in the comments down below. But definitely smack that like button. Would deeply appreciate it. If you also want to hit that subscribe button. We're getting close. We got a goal of hitting 20,000 before kickoff against Alabama. It's a tough one. It's a hard one.
I mean,
I think we're at 15,000, almost going to hit 600. We might hit 600 tonight. We just need 10 new subscribers.
There's 15,000 people subscribed to this channel.
Yeah, that's
why.
It's a little shocking. It's a little shocking. I know, right? Who would want to look at this? And now that we're even closer up to the camera, probably scaring people off. But yeah,
Dustin's broken at least 3 screens by now.
Oh, they're probably like, can I not minimize? Can I not move this guy out?
I would have done my makeup if I would have known I had to be this close.
You don't have it on right now? Jeez, you look better than you used to. Than we usually see you. But yeah, hit that subscribe. I only need 10 more to hit 15,600. So we're growing, getting about 100 a week. So we're getting there. But appreciate everybody still hanging out with us. Let's talk about new jersey numbers, VZ. This is your time to shine right here. This is also obviously my time to shine.
I say this is your alley. This and new measurements. Logan was
the measurements,
for 2 hours.
Yeah, see, we get the transfer measurements, which they're not like too gratifying to me because we already had them at their previous stop, so it's not too shocking or anything.
It's not new measurements from what I could tell. It's just what they were listed at before. Oh. So really, we're not going to know officially what all those guys measured in at until closer to this before spring practice, whenever they update the roster again.
True. Okay, so I love whenever we see changes after spring, guys putting on some size or losing weight, yada, yada, yada. But let's talk though first on on the newcomers, on the transfers, gentlemen. So Deuce Robinson is going to be wearing number 0, the USC wide receiver transfer. Y'all's thoughts on that, VZ? Since we haven't been able to hear from you a ton tonight, so now it's your time to shine. Let it loose. You are our fashion. How do you saw it? Fashionista.
Let's not go too far.
You're our fashion man, all right?
I guess. Granted, Dustin has 0 fashion, so that's a
Oh,
low
damn.
bar.
He just took a shot out of nowhere.
That's not a shot. That's a fact.
Well, it is a fact, yeah. And
I'm wearing a plain ass black T-shirt and gym shorts right now.
I've never seen that man in something that's not a black or gray T-shirt.
Absolutely not. Only for his wedding day. For his wedding day, I was there for that, and I
had on a black jacket.
I know, but it was like I was seeing a unicorn. Anyways, Deuce Robinson, VZ has a problem with his jersey number.
I don't love the number 0 on big guys. Like it's the number 0 fits like the Ja'Kai Douglases of the world, where they're the smaller
gadgety guys.
Players. 0 on a 6'7" receiver just doesn't seem right to me. I wish they would have given him 2. It was never going to happen. 0's interesting, and for what it's worth, I didn't love it on Fabian Lovett either.
Okay, that's what I was going to bring up.
Yeah, I didn't like it when he wore it either.
Yeah. Well, I screwed up in the video whenever I was talking about the jersey number releases, and I thought that Keon Coleman wore 0 at Florida State just at the time being when I was recording it, but he wore number 4, but Keon Coleman wears number 0 with the Buffalo Bills, and it doesn't look too bad in the Buffalo Bills uniform, but for a bigger guy, 6'6" here, it's going to look pretty interesting.
Do you leave that video up?
I kept it up, but I put a pinned comment saying, correction, here we go, yada, yada, yada.
Goofy.
You got to make mistakes. It's a learning lesson. We're fairly new to this YouTube game. It is what it is. And I had to get that video. Here's the deal. I had to get that video out so quickly because we had fire alarm testing going on the last 2 days, and I had to do it before 9 a.m. And so I had like only 5 minutes to get a video recorded, and that's why I rushed it. I only had to do it in 1 take. If I could have done it in more takes, I would have done it. So anyways, nobody cares much about that. Let's keep going. Excuse, it is what it is. Here we go. QB1 is going to be wearing number 1. Thomas Castellanos keeping his number from Boston College. No shocker there. Squirrel White wearing number 4. I love it. Stephon Thompson wearing number 7 at the linebacker position. I've always loved a 7 at the linebacker position. I don't know about you guys, but I do like the number 7.
The only one that comes to mind is Christian Jones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's the first one I was gonna say.
Yeah. It looked great on him.
Only one I can think of.
Yeah, it looked good. So now the most important number on the roster to me is I think a lot of people are going to think 5 because of Jameis, which we're going to talk about that. There's some controversy about someone that just changed their number to number 5 going into the season, but it's number 8, and Deontay McCray is getting this number. The defensive end transfer that came in
from Western Kentucky.
Yeah, from Western Kentucky. Got to earn it. I don't know. I thought we'd see maybe returning player get that. Definitely in the defensive back room. But, man, Kevin Wynn, that would have been nice. But we're going to talk about it. He's got I love his number. But 8, he's got it. I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? Maybe he turns out to be an absolute dog, and he develops well. But it's a big pick. I wish it was a little bit more important, like some other schools. I don't know. I think some other schools do a good job with it. Penn State wearing number 11.
For those wondering why he's going on this tangent, Timmy Jernigan's his favorite player, so he's got a special place in his heart for the number 8.
Well, Timmy Jernigan, Jalen Ramsey. The number 8 is very important to me. I mean, AZ wore it last year. I mean, there was just no one else I'd really name. I wish Renardo Green would have had it during his time, but
he did have it.
Actually, he did. Yeah, he did. What the fuck? I'm on drugs. I'm on drugs. No,
I was just trying to think, like, who on this roster would you even give the number 8 on defense? It doesn't.
It would have probably been. I mean, I wish it would have been Kevin Wynn, but he did pick a good number. But it would have probably gone to Daryl, but he's got his number. And
yeah,
6.
I don't know if there's anyone that you're like, yeah, this is the guy that's deserving of Loco Ocho.
And then that's where I wouldn't give it to anybody then. I think it's a number you've got to earn. But we'll see. Deontay McCray pulling for you. We'll see what we do. You instantly become a fan of mine when you wear that number. So interested to see where things go there. Kevin Sperry is going to be wearing number 9, the true freshman quarterback coming in. James Williams wearing number 10 off the edge, VZ. What are your thoughts on this Nebraska defensive end? Don't like it?
I don't love it.
I don't hate it. I mean, obviously, people see the number 10 on defense and think Derek Brooks, and I get that that's a high bar, but I don't hate it.
Yeah. You're fine with that?
Hopefully, he gets at least that many sacks. That should be his goal. Get to your jersey number in sacks.
FSU fans would be buying his jersey.
I wish he would have worn number 93.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, James Williams is going to be wearing number 10. Diamante Diggs, defensive end transfer, wearing number 13. I'm fine with that. I can work with that. Randy Pittman, tight end transfer from UCF, wearing number 13.
It's a weird number for a tight end.
I don't like it. I said in the video, I don't like it. I'm still holding on to it. I don't like it. I don't like that for a tight end. I like him in the traditional 40s, or if it's a singular digit. Those have grown on me for tight ends, but
it's like a star.
I mean, Landon Thomas did kind of make the 18 work. I didn't hate it, the 18 on Landon Thomas, but 13, I don't know.
Yeah. I still thought Landon Thomas was a friggin' quarterback out there sometimes with the 18. Just came off a little odd. Definitely to his lanky, like a quarterback. But yeah, it grew on me as the season went on. Wide receiver Jordan Scott, he's going to be wearing number 14. I love that. It's a great number for a wide receiver.
Taking the Johnny Wilson route.
Yep, absolutely. 100%. Definitely good for a big and tall wide receiver. 6'7", 215 pounds. Number 15 is going to defensive back Shamar Arnu. He is 6'2", 175 pounds. I don't know why I needed to say his measurements, but he's wearing number 15. Shout out to him. Javon Boggs is going to wear number 15 too as well. This was previously owned by Wayne McCoy. Y'all like that on him? Another wide receiver number. This is important. Fine with 15?
It's fine.
Okay. 21 is going to Max Redman, defensive back there. True freshman tight end Chase Lofton is going to be wearing number 23.
Gross.
Tight end.
Gross for a tight end.
That one's bad.
That's the worst one of the day so far.
That's the worst one.
Of all the ones we've gotten to so far, that's the worst one. That's disgusting.
Yeah. Chase Lofton coming in 6'6", 215 pound as a freshman.
He's basically the same size as Michael Jordan, but he's not Michael Jordan. So change the number, please.
Yeah. Linebacker transfer Elijah Herring. This is an important one. We're going to see him in the rotation heavy. Potential starter here. 6'2", 230 pounds. He's going to be wearing number 31.
Good linebacker number.
It's not bad at all.
That is crazy. Because he switched spot. DeMarco Ward went to Memphis. Elijah Herring came to Florida State. DeMarco wore number 31.
Yeah, so they just flipped each other.
They literally traded.
Yep, they did. Then going over here, Ethan Pritchard, another linebacker. He's going to be wearing number 35. Then we're getting into the lineman, gentlemen. This is where should always stay boring and traditional as it should be. Our guy Luke Pettibon is going to be wearing number 51. Love it. Wake Forest transfer center. You got Gunnar Hansen coming from Vanderbilt as a tackle. He's going to be wearing number 55. He's going to stick with that number that he had at Vanderbilt. Makes sense.
It's a good number.
Then we're jumping over to the defensive side, though, real quick with number 55, and this is true freshman defensive tackle Kevin Wynn, 6'2", 320, who just had a really good performance at the camp that he was just at. The game, what is it called? There's so many different.
Was it the
Army All-American game, or maybe it was the Navy All-American game?
Dude, that has fallen off so much.
It was the one out there in San Antonio.
It's the Army one. It's the Army
one. Yeah, I have not. Is that like the big one during the?
It is the Navy. It is the Navy All-American Bowl.
They changed it.
Yeah, they changed it.
Wow. How did that happen?
But yeah, he had a pretty good showing out there, and now taking on the same number as Braden Fisk. I think that'll endear him to a lot of Seminole fans.
I was thinking Shade Tree, but sure, that works too.
For recent,
I was
Recent
thinking
memory.
Hey, I was thinking about Jacoby McDaniel, another defensive tackle that wore
Yeah.
55 at the nose tackle position. Shout out to Jacoby. And then moving on real quick, offensive tackle Micah Pettis coming from Ole Miss. He's going to be wearing number 57. Mario Nash Jr., true freshman offensive lineman, going to be wearing 60. Love it. Adrian Medley wearing number 76. They transfer from UCF. And then we're going to go over to the wide receiver room. Tayshawn Gelsey is going to be wearing 83. Love it. Great number to pick. This one's awesome. I think this is great. We've got number 87 is going to be worn from Marquiston Douglas, Rob Gronkowski's number, because he previously was wearing 85. He's going to 87. If we don't see Gronk spikes from a touchdown from Marquiston Douglas wearing that 87, everything's falling apart, and the season is just a wash. And we got to talk about Mike Norvell's tenure, but we do need to see a Gronk spike from Marquiston Douglas. What are we talking about?
Is there someone at 85 right now? Willie Suarez, maybe, or
I have
you don't have it pulled up? I thought you had the roster pulled up. Sorry.
No. I just got the
I'll
list.
pull it up real quick.
So
Go ahead. I'm gonna run through these real.
Why he didn't move back?
No, I know. Yeah, Marquiston Douglas, 80. I love 87 for him. Daryl DeSer is gonna be wearing number 90 on the defensive line. Tylen Coleman is gonna be wearing number 91. Another defensive lineman, Mandrell DeSer, 93. And then
Dustin, you nailed it. Sorry.
Oh yeah,
Willie
got
Suarez.
that down.
It's like my favorite player.
Oh
He's
my
a dog.
God.
Dude, did you not watch the Charleston Southern game? I mean, he balled.
I tried not
Really?
to.
He got
I
the
tried
forced
not to watch it.
He forced the fumble on the punt, then got a recovery.
That put the highlight tape together. Put it up. Number
That's the
94
type of guy
is,
you want on your roster.
yeah, you want a guy that can fight. You sure do. Number 94 is going to true freshman defensive end LaJesse Harold. I love it. He's coming in 6'5", 215 pounds. LaJesse Harold is someone I'm keeping a close eye on to potentially be an impactful player going into the 2025 season. He's really talented, and this coaching staff feels really highly about him. So excited to see him getting developed under Terrence Knighton. Then 96 is going to defensive lineman Tylen Lee. And then we're going to finish it off with Jason Jenkins keeping his number that he had at Tennessee with number 97.
Can I throw in a mild complaint real quick?
Go right ahead. I'm letting my cat out.
I'm mad that the Twins didn't have like matching numbers. The true freshman edge of the Desirs, like 90 and 93. Could we not have at least put them side by side, like 90 and 91, or like 19 and 91, where it's inverse, like something cool like that would have been cool to see. But just 90 and 93,
Okay. You're
minor
thinking
complaint.
of some cool
I know.
ideas. Okay, that's fine. You're thinking of some cool ideas. I don't blame you. Maybe we'll see that later on in their career. You never know. All right, let's go over to some jersey numbers that have changed from the current roster. Some guys making some changes. Redshirt sophomore defensive back Edwin Joseph is going from number 33 to number 3. Number 3 is a really important number to me too as well. Leon Washington was one of my favorite players when I was growing up.
He can't be worse than the last guy that wore 3 in that secondary, so I'm okay with it.
Damn, jeez, that's gracious.
Am I wrong?
You know
No.
who else wore? You know who else wore number 3 in the defensive back room? Guy that
Ronald Darby.
Myron Roll.
I was trying to think of another one real quick before we got to Derwin, but I couldn't think of it.
Yeah, I'm going to Derwin James. Derwin James. Number 3 number is really important though. But yeah,
it was before Kevin Knowles.
Damn, golly, easy. No matter January, we're in 2025.
Damn. I'm sorry. I'm not, but I'm sorry.
Has a problem. Yeah, we saw better play at the end of the season. Damn,
that's not saying much.
Damn. Okay, we got to move on. All right, red shirt. All right, I don't know. I'm saying where they're at in their college career, but Roydell Williams. Here we go. This is controversial. FSU Twitter. Yeah, I know. I am. I had to copy and paste it before we got on here. Roydell Williams going from number 24 to number 5. They're having a problem with it.
You ready for me to get really controversial?
Uh-oh.
I love it.
You love it?
Both Hueytown, Alabama people Why not?
Ooh, okay.
I thought he was going to get mad again.
No, I actually really like it. Represent Hueytown.
I think it's fine. I mean, Deuce Spann wore it.
I was literally just about to say that. Deuce Spann
Yeah.
just wore 5. We can't be getting too critical here.
It's not too special much anymore, sadly. Should do
To
a better
me,
job.
To me, if anything, it's a sign that Roy Dell is planning to stick with Florida State.
Well, it
As
should
if
be,
we didn't know that by now.
Well, I mean,
Well,
he
the
could
spring window.
transfer after the spring, but taking on number 5
Mm-hmm.
seems like he's sticking around.
There's a question in the chat here that we're going to get to, talking about the running backs here in a second once we get through these numbers. LaWayne McCoy is going from number 15 to number 7 over there. BJ Gibson's going to go from number 80 to number 10. Jabril Rawls is going to go from number 30 to number 11. Jalen Lucas is going from number 13, just down one more number, to number 12. To me,
I wish he would have stayed at 13.
Number. Yeah, I'd rather have him at 13 than 12. 12 is a quarterback's number to me, always. Trevor
I missed
Jackson.
that one at first because it was so close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Trevor Jackson is going from number 10 to number 16.
Didn't he also wasn't he wearing 5 the last couple games when Stu Spann was doing whatever?
Yeah, they had
another guy that was wearing 5.
Mm-hmm. And then some massive news here. Jaden Parrish is going from number 55 to number 36. I'm definitely being sarcastic there for you guys. But yeah, those are the updated jersey numbers. I mean, we spend most of our time on this show tonight talking about it. So if there's any more changes to the roster, definitely whenever some of these other guys enroll in the summer, we'll have you fully updated and give you a 10-minute plus segment on it. But we deeply dive into everything on this show. There's a question, though, in here about the running back room, gentlemen. And this is from Strike Adocious on YouTube asking, do you guys anticipate the running back room staying the same after the spring? Does either Williams, Holmes, or Singleton leave with anticipation of the incoming freshman from Lee County coming in? And we talked about him earlier in the show, but definitely talking about Usman Kroma, a very talented running back that Florida State was able to flip away from the Georgia Bulldogs, and Kirby Smart. What are y'all's thoughts on this running back room here in this question?
I mean, honestly, I was a little surprised that we didn't see any attrition during the spring window, because obviously Holmes showed in limited opportunities in 2024 that he was arguably the most productive running back on that roster last season. And Williams, on the other hand, coming in from Alabama, didn't have the season that he wanted to, dealt with an injury that knocked him out for a large duration of that 2024 season. So I just thought one of those two guys, if someone was going to transfer out of Florida State's running back room, it would probably be one of them, since they've only got one season of eligibility remaining to showcase themselves before a possible professional career. And, you want to get as many touches as possible. So I think at this point, Kroma obviously not going to enroll until the summer. That'll be after the spring window, but depending on how things go during spring practice, and we'll see how those two continue to perform. And then you think about the guys behind them. Samuel Singleton, just named a freshman All-American for his work on special teams as a kick returner. He's still got a lot of potential and seems like a guy that's just going to continue to get better. Cam Davis, going into his second season with the program, needs to work on his vision some. But he was a tough runner, and he played through some injuries last year as well. And then Mekhi Danzy, the speedster, already impressing over there with the track team. He needs to add a little bit more to his frame, but whenever he gets out there in the open field, he's like a blur. So we'll have to see. It's a very interesting running back room. And then Jalen Lucas, we'll see how he does in that recovery from his season-ending injury, what he's able to do throughout the course of spring. And there's a lot of different bodies in that room. And, Florida State under Gus Malzahn, they're going to want to run the ball. They're going to use probably multiple running backs, and we'll see how it shakes out. It wouldn't surprise me if there does end up being a departure.
Yeah, my guess is that when Norvell and Malzahn and all these other guys are just talking to this room and be like, hey, stick with us through spring. Let's see where we figure out with an offensive line that's actually worth something, and see how that rotation kind of clicks out. And if you don't like where you are, then makes total sense to leave. I would agree. I think Holmes, if anybody, is the most likely candidate of that group, because he was RB4, RB5 last year. Didn't really get a lot of touches. So to me, that would make the most sense, even if he's a talented running back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and two, like you said, the offensive line. just seeing a better product there is going to really get us a good feel of some of these younger running backs like Singleton, also to Cam Davis. Like, I still think it's really hard to grade what we saw in the running back room last year with it, but it is a loaded room. It's a loaded room, and interested to see what kind of attrition there is, but it's going to be very hard to compete with a guy that has some really good natural talent and an absolute playmaker with Usman Kroma. That was a massive pickup for Florida State, and I'm interested to see how he can fit into this rotation early on, because he is going to get out there. There's a reason why Florida State was able to get him and flip him on early signing day and just such a short notice. There's some promises made, and we're definitely going to see some Usman Kroma, but interested how that shakes out the rest of that room. And interested too, like a guy like Mekhi Danzy, if we see him as more of a hybrid guy in this offense, just with his length and the way that he can be a pass catcher, just kind of what we saw him too being utilized last season on the offensive side of the ball. So another room that we will be keeping a very close eye on once we're able to get out there for some spring camp action. But really good question there. All right, let's jump over to a quick conversation about Florida State not holding its spring showcase. The Seminoles currently going through Doak Campbell Stadium renovations, and VZ's excited that there is no spring showcase happening. And Mike Norvell commented on it during his Vision of Excellence New Year's presentation, talking mainly over to the Seminole boosters during it, but talking about the newcomers, the new coaching staff. It also revealed that Florida State is not going to have a spring showcase that it has on an annual basis. He said, we're limited with NCAA rules on the amount of time we get to work through spring, and just with how the calendar laid out and some of the other elements, we just felt it was in the best interest of our team to go through spring and make sure we're able to capitalize on each of these practices and every meeting, rather than having to possibly miss an opportunity by going and trying to get that done off campus, just with some of the hurdles and different distractions, what that could entail. Norvell also emphasizing that the importance of the 15 allotted spring practices that they get. He said it's about the work, it's about the preparation, it's about the daily investment. We get 15 days, and we've got to maximize every one of those. And sure enough, absolutely they do. Y'all's thought on the spring showcase not happening? I mean, it's definitely changed a lot in the last 10 years of the head coaches, really going back to Jimbo Fisher when it really was a garnet and gold game. Interested to get y'all's takes on it right now.
I know VZ has a lot to say.
Yeah, VZ's ready to go.
I'm so happy that it got canceled. I hate it. It's so pointless. It's not a game. It's just a glorified scrimmage, or not even scrimmage. It's a glorified practice, and they're not even really hitting because they don't want anyone to get hurt. But it's not worth the TV production crew going down there and the travel for fans to come. And I know people were getting at me on Twitter like, yeah, but I want to go tailgate with all these Florida State people. Get some lawn chairs, go sit in your backyard and watch the 2013 national championship. It's way better than this.
What do you think?
Like the modern time Allen Iverson rant right there. It's not a game. It's practice. Not a game.
Pointless. Yeah. It's pointless. It's boring. I hated watching it last year. I hated watching it the year before that. But I would be fine canceling them every year. I'm so serious.
Here's the deal. It is a rough watch. It's really, I think the importance of it is, I think to me, just because I worked at Garnet Gold, being around all the local businesses, I understand the effect of it, because you do get a lot of foot traffic. You got everybody coming in, traveling in, and you get to the restaurants and all that kind of stuff. So it's great on the business side. So they take a hit, which definitely sucks. And I hate having that happen, because Florida State overall for football being good, I couldn't imagine how much of a hit they took last year with them going to a 10. To also lose out on a spring game as well, where you would love to see, where there's probably going to be kind of a reset in some minds. Definitely some people still struggling a little bit, but take a few more months of a little bit of rehab and then reset the mind and be trying to get some hype going into this next season to try to forget 2024. So there is going to be a lot of people that enjoy going to the spring games, also too, a lot more affordable and everything. So that's definitely like that. But the product on there, and like you said, it's definitely a practice. I mean, Dustin, you and I have been there quite a bit. It's just practically moving that from the IPF and the practice fields over inside Doak Campbell Stadium. There's not much of a change. They just have on jerseys and there's like some of the former Noles there and such. But yeah, it's not it's not the same as it used to be back in the days when we had Garnet and Gold games and you had Jameis Winston dropping bombs and you're like, that's the guy. That's the guy right there.
I was saying it'd be different. It'd be different if it was still a game. Like I used to love the Garnet and Gold games. I had a blast with them as a kid growing up, and we'd go to Tallahassee. It was awesome, but it's not a game anymore. And to your, I do see your point about local businesses, but there's also more than just one sport on campus. The basketball team's okay. If you like the lesser sports, baseball is there. Softball's a good team. You know, there's more than just football that you can go support.
But it's football town, and
I get it. I get it. I'm just saying it doesn't.
By that point of the year, you're missing your football fix, and especially with the way 2024 went, Florida State fans really interested to see, what exactly is this new coaching staff going to do? What's the offense going to look like? What's this revamped defense going to look like? Obviously, 30 plus new incoming players into the program this winter, so you're going to miss that experience, and you're not going to get to see them until kickoff against Alabama. But I also think that this can be framed as a positive thing for Florida State, because you're not putting anything on tape that a potential opponent, namely Alabama, since that's going to be the first one that FSU plays in 2025, they're not going to be able to see anything of what Florida State is doing. They know who Florida State brought in on the coaching staff. They know who they brought in through high school recruiting and the transfer portal. But they're not going to exactly know how they all fit together, where Florida State is using certain guys schematically on offense and defense and different things of that nature. So in that way, I think it can be viewed as a little bit of a positive for Florida State. But I do understand from the fan side, want to exactly see what this team could look like.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, I think, too, when you have such a new roster coming in as well, it's enticing to want to go out there and see them. Like you have a whole new quarterback, you have a new starting quarterback that is a dynamic playmaker, and it's going to want to have the fan base put their butt in some seats to watch them. Sadly, it's going to be against Alabama to begin the season. I say sadly because it's going to be a highly priced ticket, I would imagine, in a newly renovated Doak Campbell Stadium. But it's almost like a whole new roster almost. There's more newcomers than returning guys, and that's the thing that I think is giving the FSU fans some hope of seeing a turnaround that not only do they desperately want, but also too Mike Norvell needs it, or he won't be here much longer. There's a question on here I want to go into real quick. Also, to appreciate the donation as well from our guy Strikeadocious asking. Also, I'd like to know, with losing our starting cornerbacks, who are our starting corners going into this next season. Also, thanks, guys. Love your show. So appreciate the kind words there, and thanks for tuning in to us as always. But projecting these starting corners here, this is going to be heavily battled this upcoming spring and fall camp. Losing AZ, he's off to the NFL draft, but you definitely have some younger talent that you're excited about. You had to do a whole kind of, this is a big kind of, I wouldn't say, it almost feels like a reset just because what you had in the 2023 season, and you're seeing Renardo Green ball out, Jarian Jones having a great season as well. But, you're looking for your pure lockdown corner now, or corners. What could it potentially look like going into this next season?
It's tough to say, right? I mean, a lot of youngsters in the mix for Florida State. Obviously, you're losing all three of your starting cornerbacks from last year with AZ headed to the NFL. Fintrell Cypress now exhausting his eligibility and graduating, going to take a shot at the league. And then Kevin Knowles as well, finishing up his career in 2024. So we'll see exactly how this defense is run, and if they're going to have three cornerbacks on the field at every given time. But regardless, you are replacing a lot of talent and experience in that room, and you're going to be asking some of these guys, underclassmen, who some of them now upperclassmen, to step up. And a guy who I'm really high on is Quindarius Jones, and we've talked about him a lot over the last few years. He's got the length, the size that Florida State wants out there at cornerback, 6'2", long arms. And, he was up and down in 2024. You saw some positive moments out there. You think back to the victory against Cal. He provided a pretty good spark there on one of the defensive series in that game, and someone with a lot of promise. And then also, another guy in that same class as Quindarius, Edwin Joseph, who we saw come along in 2024, make some plays on defense, also was an asset on special teams. Jabril Rawls, another guy going into his third year, he was able to get into the rotation some. And then you think about, obviously Charles Lester going into his second year at Florida State and a highly rated prospect coming in. Started to see him contribute a little bit more as the year goes on, and needs to continue to grow and develop. And Kai Bates as well. So Florida State, there's going to be a bunch of guys in the mix here, and we'll see who steps up during the spring. And this is also a room where I'd be interested to see if Florida State, depending on how things progress during the spring, if they decide to pursue a veteran transfer to round out that position group.
Yeah, I think as of now, you'd have to feel pretty good about Quindarius Jones locking down one of the outside corner spots, and probably Edwin Joseph in the slot. And then that battle for that second outside corner between Lester, Rawls, Kai Bates. I mean, there's a lot of talented guys in that room, and it's probably going to be the most hotly contested competition throughout spring and fall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you've got Jamari Howard coming back from his season-ending injury that knocked him out for his true freshman season. And then we'll see about some of these freshmen as well. Gregory Xavier Thomas was a very highly rated guy. He's got the potential to play cornerback or safety, but I think he's got an ideal cornerback frame for Florida State's defensive system. So we'll see how it goes, but definitely going to be relying on some inexperienced guys to take that next step forward.
Mm-hmm. I'm ready for some more Quindarius Jones. Like you said, yes, he had signs of some flashes, but also had some things where you saw he was a younger player, but he plays with a lot of physicality and energy, like a guy that has passion. And I think that's something that this team lacked overall, but specifically, I want that on my defensive side of the ball. Definitely, if I want to lock down corner, that's something that I want with Quindarius, and the length, his physical attributes. That's just something that I think is exciting. He's got to earn it, though. A lot of these guys, these younger guys, got to earn it, and I'm glad there's a lot of competition in there. Coach Surtain, I trust his judgment and his coaching as well, which is a good thing, and I don't have to worry about development there. So looking at Quindarius Jones, I expect an upgrade there. I expect an upgrade in play from him, and interested to see what we get out of Quinn. All right. Let's go over to a few more quick hitters here before we end off with some basketball. Carson Beck. Big conversation here, gentlemen. It kind of came to a shock to everybody. First off, was intending on going to the NFL draft, leaving the Georgia Bulldogs. He was dealing with an injury, too, as well, that eliminated him from participating in the rest of the college football playoff. But then there's some news that he is entering the transfer portal, and it was pretty much immediate that he was going to be joining his girly girl down there in Coral Gables and Miami, and going to go join hand in hand with Mario Cristobal because they saw what they were able to find with Cam Ward, although it didn't make it to the postseason like they liked to. They wanted to go to the playoffs, but ended up at the Pop-Tart Bowl. But now Carson Beck is with the Hurricanes. I'm interested to get y'all's take on this. FSU Twitter, of course, whenever something happens. I mean, we heard all about it when Thomas Castellanos went to FSU, heard all the Kyler Murray jokes and how small he is. Kyler Murray's in the NFL right now, by the way, as a starting quarterback. But heard all the jokes and everything, but interested to get y'all's initial reaction, to that, and just kind of how that could affect Florida State this upcoming season for the Seminoles, as Florida State will have them at home this upcoming season.
I would say it scares me a lot less than, the addition of Cam Ward last year. And, Carson Beck, been a pretty talented quarterback throughout his career at Georgia. At the same time, I mean, he's coming off a pretty devastating injury, that UCL injury that he suffered in the SEC championship. And, just doing some research on that and the recovery time, it can take up to 4 months before a player is even going through basic throwing activities again. So, I mean, at the very least, it sounds like he could miss the entirety of spring practice for Miami and not be back to closer to 100% until late in the summer, getting close to fall camp and the season. So, I mean, depending on how all of that shakes out, he's going to have a hard time, losing those physical reps, obviously, to learn a new offense at Miami, developing chemistry with his new set of playmakers, which Miami seems like right now only bringing in one wide receiver through the transfer portal. So we'll just see how it goes. But just with the circumstances right now, I would say it doesn't scare me a whole lot.
I completely agree. He was pretty good 2 years ago, to the point where I even thought he could sneak his way into the first round if he had declared for the draft last year. And then this year, granted, his wide receivers did not help him at all this year at Georgia. I mean, I think they dropped
No.
something like 30 or 35
One of the
passes. It was
worst in the
something
country.
it was something insane. So he didn't get any help there. But at the same time, he just wasn't making the same kind of plays that he was the year prior. And like Dustin just mentioned, tough injury to overcome, and they paid him a lot of money to come to campus to deal with this injury and recover and maybe be ready for that first game. We'll have to see. But yeah, I agree. It doesn't really scare me the same way that Cam Moore did. And I don't know how Miami's really going to do with that.
And we'll see how the schedule shakes out. Probably not going to hear anything as far as official dates for the rest of those 2025 games for a couple more weeks. But especially if Florida State's able to get an early matchup with Miami there in September, maybe early October, you've got to wonder how 100% Beck will be at that point.
I feel like we haven't played them in September since like 2008.
Interesting to see how Carson Beck does. I don't know.
2009.
Something like that. It's been a while.
Carson Beck. I don't know. A lot of things have to shake out there for the Miami Hurricanes all across the board in order to see if they can find some success. What was it, $3 to $4 million in NIL money? Something like that.
It's the rumor.
Put a lot of that there. Don't they need some offensive linemen to protect a guy that's going to be a passer? Not really technically at all a running guy. He's going to be more of a threat with his arm. But yeah, got to look for more targets too, and wide receivers that he can throw to. But it's interesting.
We'll see. I mean, the biggest hindrance to Miami is obviously the coaching of Mario Cristobal and, his ability to give away a game or two down the stretch, games that a team that talented obviously shouldn't lose. And especially at the time when they did, the Hurricanes this past season dropped 3 of their final 4. One of those was the Pop-Tart Bowl where Cam Ward obviously didn't play in the second half and they were up whenever he was playing. But, that team, they should have won the ACC championship in 2024 and they faltered it. And I'm not sure that this addition of Beck is going to do anything to get them back to where they're trying to go for the first time.
I think them getting Minnesota's defensive coordinator is going to be bigger than getting Carson back. That's just, that may be a crazy opinion, but their defense was horrific the last few years, and getting Minnesota's defensive coordinator. Minnesota's had great defenses the last few years. So we'll see if he can have the same kind of impact at Miami. But yeah, Carson Beck doesn't really move the needle for me in 2025.
Who's your top 3 quarterbacks in the state of Florida right now? With DJ Lagway having the season that he did in his freshman season, you got Thomas Castellanos coming in as a transfer dynamic guy that you're hoping can kind of bring back that Jordan Travis type of offense to Florida State. But now under the helm of Gus Malzahn on the offensive side of the ball with a new coordinator, where do the rankings
about
go?
Who Florida Atlantic's quarterback is?
I was thinking like USF's quarterback was okay last year. I don't know if he's still there.
Oh, we're throwing them in there.
It's not a great group for the state of Florida quarterbacks right now. Lagway has a huge ceiling there in Gainesville, and I think he was a little overhyped last year. Like he's a good player, but he wasn't spectacular like a lot of Florida fans were saying. It's a dire state.
What do you have? What do you got, Dustin? You're worried about getting clipped?
He didn't even number anyone. He just danced around the whole question.
And you're damn right, I'm not going to.
Based off projection, it would surprise me if Lagway's not at that number 1 spot by the end of the 2025 season.
He should be.
He's got a big arm, a very high ceiling, and they're keeping some of that continuity around him in Gainesville. Obviously, Napier coming back, so if everything goes as expected, he should be at that top spot.
All right. I said rankings. You got to continue. 2 and 3. Who's going to be 2 and 3?
Now you're really going to make me
look
up USF's quarterback.
I'm the one that look. No, I'm not. We're not going that far. We're going top 3.
No, you said in the state. You said in the state.
No. Don't worry. I'm the one that looks at the YouTube comments. Y'all don't look at them, so I get to see what kind of hate we get or whatever kind of someone that has just nasty criticism on us. Well, and let us know in the chat too. The chat,
I'll-
everybody's not. So we got 150 people in here. I'd like to hear the chat's opinion on it as well.
I'll put Beck at 2, Castellanos at 3.
Okay. I was in the same boat with you. I'm in the same boat with you because right now in the preseason, things can change when we get through the season, but this is a preseason projection. We predicted Florida State to potentially go to the ACC championship this last season. Did that happen?
Yeah.
Effing not.
I think I would actually have Castellanos 2 and Beck 3, just because I don't know what that arm strength is going to
What'd
look
you say?
like coming off.
Oh, Beck
I think
1.
I'd have No. Castellanos 2 and then Beck 3.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Just because I don't know what Beck's going to look like coming off that injury. Maybe he comes out throwing like
Yeah.
Tyler Van Dyke there his last year, where he couldn't throw past 7 yards. So we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's all projection. I mean, you never know, especially an injury to your throwing arm. I mean, it's tough to overcome no matter what. And we've seen stuff like that take down quarterbacks. Especially you, Visa. You can point to Minnesota and obviously taking Christian Ponder in the first round, which maybe shouldn't have done that, but then him having those arm injuries that really affected his career,
among other things.
Sorry too about your Vikings this season.
I can't say I didn't expect it.
Dang.
Yeah. I mean, I knew what to expect from my team. I do it every year, so this is no shocker. I get to have a really fun ride, and I get to talk shit and have a good time throughout that middle part of the season when we're going on a run, beating some pretty bad teams or mediocre teams. But Steelers fumbled the bag. So did the Vikings. So we both are down bad. The Bucs also lost here and decided to lose to the Commanders and a rookie quarterback. But luckily we cover them with Sports Illustrated and get to continue the ride there. But both of our teams are done in the dumps. But shout out to Jared Verse and the Rams and Braden Fisk. And Keir Thomas. Keir Thomas was in the game too. Pop was out there. That was awesome to see.
Can we shout them out another time? I'd love to shout them out next week if they beat Philly.
Yeah. Sorry about that again. We'll wait a little bit. They got a big matchup against the Eagles coming up, and Sean McVay, he knows something about his squad. He knows talent. He did a good job there in that draft, and sure enough, they've got some absolute dogs on that defensive line. And that defensive.
While we're on the topic, can I interest you in Sam Darnold?
I need to think about that one a little bit further here. We are in such an awful situation.
He's better than Russell Wilson. He's better than Justin Fields.
Yeah. No,
until week 12.
I'm just worried. I'm worried that whenever it comes down to big games, that he's going to throw it badly. In that regard.
Yeah, well, I mean, that wasn't happening. That hasn't happened in like a decade for Mike Tomlin. So
he's seeing ghosts out there.
You know who I really need back is the goat of the goatest, and that is Big Ben Roethlisberger. And he's going to come back and lead us.
Yeah, but his last 6 years, he was just like we were just talking about. Couldn't throw a 7-yard out.
He's looking thinner now too. I think we're setting up something special. I think something's coming. Anyways, real quick, let's finish this off before we get into some basketball. We're going to give our opinion, our top 5 rankings on which 5 transfers will make the biggest impact for Florida State in 2025, gentlemen. I got my list down. Interested to hear y'all's. And this is biggest impact. Not your favorite guys that they brought in or whatever. It's the biggest impact in this upcoming season. And we want to hear in the comments too. We need to hear in the comments down below what you guys think. But who wants to go first? I can start off with them.
Doing one at a time, 5 to 1.
Let's go one at a time. We'll move through this smoothly though. I'll start off since I'm over here on this side. We'll go over that way. I'm going to start off with Thomas Castellanos at 1. Kind of easy pick here. He's going to make a massive impact because he's a starting quarterback. But like we've talked about throughout this entire offseason, having someone with a dynamic ability in this offense, I think is going to be big and be refreshing to have back for Mike Norvell just in general, because he is still going to have a hand in this offense. He's not going to be calling plays on Saturdays, but he's going to play a big hand in building what this offense does. But I think Thomas Castellanos is my number 1.
I would agree with that.
I've also got Castellanos at 1.
Okay. Number 2, this is where it's going to get interesting, I think.
Mine's going to shock people.
Yeah, that's why we're here. We're here for the entertainment business, everybody. Number 2, I'm going James Williams off the edge from Nebraska, the transfer there, rejoining Tony White and Terrence Knighton. I thought that was a really important pickup, and I think it's going to be one of the most impactful landing that Florida State has had in this transfer class for this upcoming season. Florida State's got to get to the quarterback. It was such a letdown last year with Marvin Jones Jr. and Pat Payton, and they've got to do a better job. And for this defense, when you're running 3-3-5, you got to find some guys that can get back there from just a smaller selection of personnel there on the line. And I think the defensive end room is such an important piece for Tony White's defense. And that's why I got James Williams up here at my number 2.
I've got him in my top 5, but not number 2.
Okay.
Shocking number 2. You guys are going to be like, what is wrong with you?
Okay.
Adrian Medley, UCF transfer offensive lineman. Think about it. He's the only offensive lineman coming with Herb Hand and Gus Malzahn. He knows that system. He's going to get these guys caught up to speed. And he's going into, his 7th year of eligibility?
Yeah.
Experience, knowledge in the system, get everybody caught up. It's hard to make a bigger impact than that.
Like a Dimitri Emanuel kind of guy.
I'm also rolling with an offensive lineman at 2. I've got left tackle Gunnar Hansen, the Vanderbilt transfer, just because it's going to be such an important position. And, we saw last year Florida State tried to rely on Darius Washington, and he ended up regressing for whatever reason. And there were times where he was simply unplayable out there, and FSU didn't have very much behind him to step into that role
Thanks,
either.
Alex Atkins, for that. Appreciate it.
There's going to be a huge spot for Hansen. He's got the experience, 27 career starts at left tackle, over 2,000 snaps in the SEC, good size at 6'5", 330 pounds. He's going to be vital in keeping Castellanos upright on some of those plays where he's not able to evade the defenders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think that is a good pick there, because I'm going into my number 3, and I've got Micah Pettis for me at the right tackle position. I want to name both of them. If I could name probably all the offensive linemen, I would have done that. But no, to me, for the right tackle position, it's awfully important. I mean, the product that we've seen at that position, specifically, Dustin, you and I, in the press box. It's just, and 2 VZ as well. But just like it's just so scary to see how awful. We're talking. Like, I think we could have gone out there and had a few reps. Like, that's how badly it was. Alex Atkins did a garbage job of what he did with both the tackles. I'm just being plain honest. Nobody was developed. Nobody could go out.
Don't say just both, because there's more than just 2 people.
Yeah, Robert Scott, who couldn't stay healthy for more than 1 drive of a game. And then you had Jeremiah Byers that was full of hype but no production. And then you were trying to put in some young guys that you just simply could not develop. And it was a reoccurring basis for the last couple of years. And Mike Norvell kept him on staff, and that's why they had to move on from him. But sorry, but Micah Pettis, he's got to be up there high for me as a tackle coming into this season to protect a guy like Thomas Castellanos, who you would like to see him be able to look downfield long and throw the ball.
Yeah, my number 3, you just mentioned him, James Williams, obviously has familiarity with Pot Roast, Tony White, that whole defense. I would hope he sees more snaps than what he's shown or than what he's played at Nebraska the last 2 years, but he's been super productive, as we talked about when Florida State landed him. He's probably going to be edge rusher number 1 for Florida State this year, so got to throw him up pretty high.
I'm with VZ here. I've also got James Williams at number 3, and to me, this is the probably the top possible breakout candidate as far as the transfers coming in on Florida State's roster. I feel like this kid has a high ceiling that he can continue to reach with more playing time. 29 pressures last season and 188 snaps. It's a 15.4% pressure rate. And, has shown the ability to get after the passer. I think the biggest thing for him is being able to play more on first and second down and contributing against the run. But with that experience in Tony White's defense and playing under Terrence Knighton for the last 2 years, I think that's going to be very beneficial as he comes into a defensive end room that's obviously losing, Patrick Payton, Marvin Jones Jr., and a bunch of guys after that as well. Sione is gone, Byron Turner Jr. is gone. Basically everyone in your rotation from last year outside of Aaron Hester no longer on the roster. So having someone with that experience like James Williams to step in, he will be very important.
Yeah, going to be huge as an impactful player. To number 4, I'm going with Luke Pettibon, the Wake Forest center transfer. I'm very high on him because Florida State has moved on. It's just finally ran out of eligibility, but Maurice Smith had held onto that position since I was 6 years old, and Florida State had nobody there to develop. And it's just kind of a theme here, as we're seeing with the offensive line, but Florida State needed to find somebody that could come play and be a starter at the center position, because they had nobody that they developed as a younger player. So as an impactful player on my top 5, it's Luke Pettibon. He's going to be a glue to this entire offensive line group that is going to be putting out a whole new practically line. We'll see Richie Leonard out there as well. We'll see what the landscape looks like on the interior with Richie Leonard. But Luke Pettibon is going to play a pivotal part and be an impactful player for Florida State, working and protecting Thomas Castellanos, and also getting this run game going that Gus Malzahn likes to do and his offensive scheme.
All right, we're being too boring. Give me Squirrel. I think Florida State they've needed a slot receiver. Obviously, there's talent in that room that could be it, but Squirrel White has production at Tennessee if he can get back to his 2023 form, and he has return value. We'll see if he ends up being Florida State's punt returner and or kick returner, but I think that little extra added bonus on the special teams kind of gives me the nod for him here at 4.
Yeah, I'm copying the comment that's up on the screen right now, and I'm going with Micah Pettis, Florida State's projected starting right tackle at number 4. Bringing in prolific size at 6'7", 350 pounds, a ton of experience, 29 starts at right tackle, pretty good run blocker, over 2,000 snaps in the SEC. Considering how bad Florida State's offensive tackles were a season ago, to be able to bring in some guys like Gunnar Hansen and Micah Pettis is going to be a potential game changer for Florida State. We'll see how it all works out in the spring. We'll see, with Coach Herb Hand and being able to develop chemistry across the entire starting 5. But man, those 2 additions and, Pettibon very close to cracking my top 5, but not quite in there. Going to be big for Florida State on the outside of that offensive line.
I'm going to finish it off with number 5 here, and I'm going with Deuce Robinson. And I was contemplated there between Squirrel White, there, Beasy. But here's the situation, gentlemen. With Thomas Castellanos, we're going to do a lot of moving around, and it depends too on how the offensive line is looking. But if everything's perfect, then Squirrel White definitely has an advantage of being your top wide receiver guy that Thomas Castellanos is going to want to go to. But I think Castellanos is want to go to Deuce Robinson pretty early on, just because of the size of the nature, and to if things collapse or if he's rolling out, there's more shots being taken to a guy like Deuce Robinson with his size on those one-on-one matchups that Florida State hadn't had last season, but they utilized in such a good way with Mike Norvell previously, with guys like Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson. And for a guy that's a dual threat quarterback, just like what we had previously with Jordan Travis, a Deuce Robinson steps up into that role that can definitely be a best friend to a quarterback that plays in that type of style. And it was hard. It was hard for me to kind of pick that over Squirrel White, but I just think it's more of who was going to be a best friend to a quarterback, and I think it's Deuce with that size. It's a lot easier to throw to.
The only reason I didn't put Deuce Robinson in my 5 or in my top 5 is there's a lot of tall receivers on this team. We already mentioned Jordan Scott, the JUCO guy, and he's just one of the handful of guys that's 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", etc. Squirrel White's kind of an anomaly where they just don't have a player like him that can do a lot of different things there from the slot. My number 5, got to go with your left tackle, Gunnar Hansen. Even if I don't think he's the best of the offensive lineman they brought in, your blindside protector is your most important player on the offensive line besides center, arguably, but got to protect the blind side. I'll take Gunnar Hansen here at my 5. A lot of experience, can play either the left or the right side if Micah Pettis goes down. Solid pickup.
My dog's throwing up over there. He's just throwing up. So I'll make this one quick.
Your dog's throwing up?
Right there, yep. Right there.
Perfect timing here.
Right for number 5.
Does not like your pick with Gunnar Hansen there.
He does not like my number 5 pick. Yeah, it was tough. I was between Deuce and Squirrel White. But I mean, like Austin said, you're losing your most experienced slot wide receiver. Don't have a ton of other guys there that maybe necessarily fit in 100%. And Squirrel White, I mean, he had pretty good production over his 3 years at Tennessee, produced a little bit more than Deuce Robinson did at USC, and, should be a big-time playmaker for Florida State out of the gate. But, yeah, I'm going to go deal with this real quick.
I just know it smells foul in there right now.
Oh, I can't be smelling great. Can't be smelling right. Well, VZ, what you and I can do real quick, though, I have an honorable mention. I don't know if maybe you have something in your mind of someone, but I went with Elijah Herring, the Memphis linebacker transfer. Florida State does need some experience in the linebacker room, and he's a really versatile linebacker with good experience as well. And I thought this was a really nice pickup for the Seminoles in that room. He brought in Caleb Lavale as well, but he's going to be someone that's going to be impactful later on in his career. But Elijah Herring is someone that's an immediate impact guy in this 2025 transfer class. You got an honorable mention?
Yeah, I'll stick in that same room and go Stephon Thompson, kind of for the same reason that I talked about Adrian Medley. But Thompson's been with Tony White at Nebraska, was with him at Syracuse, knows the system inside and out, can bring some of these younger guys along. I think that has just as much of an impact. Even if he probably doesn't play 700 snaps, he may only get 200 to 300. But he was once viewed as one of the best linebackers in the country. If he can bounce back to his pre-injury form, I think it could have a pretty big impact on this team.
Yep. I like that pick. I like that pick for sure. Need some a good product in the linebacker room. And I do have a lot of confidence, though. If easy, you probably feel the same way with Tony White as being the defensive coordinator, but he's going to be very hands-on as well with his past experience in the linebacker room too there with Coach John Papuchis, which at his previous stops too was successful in getting some guys who league there as well. So really looking forward to seeing how that group evolves and gets better. Moving on from Randy Shannon, just like Miss Lewis just commented down there on YouTube. Hey, friends, the guys need 9 more likes. Yes, I think we're 9 or 10 more likes away from 100. So appreciate all of y'all on here. I think we're close to 130 people watching through YouTube. So appreciate you guys a ton. If you would hit the like button, it just helps us grow the channel more. And also, too, I think we're only like 5 or 6 subscribers away from 15,600. So if you're new or have been contemplating wanting to subscribe and you've been hanging out with us throughout the hour, definitely suggest doing so. We put out a lot of videos throughout the week, and also we go live at least one time a week as well on here doing shows like this, going through the latest updates, trending news, and some topics that you throw in the chat to us. But let's finish it off with some basketball, because there was a fight at the end of the game.
Well,
that's what we need to start off with. We need to start off with a fight because a lot of verbal things going on, a lot of pushing and shoving, coaches getting involved, police officers, the crowd was in it. Take us through what happened there at the end of Florida State versus Pittsburgh. And the tuck. I'm going to say one more thing, but I completely forgot.
Florida State versus basketball.
12-5, baby. Shout out basketball. I'm proud of them. Florida State basketball, 12-5.
It has been Florida State versus basketball for the last 2 years, but they're showing some signs of life. I feel like just starting at the end of the game doesn't do the whole situation justice. Got to go back to when Cam Corn first transferred away from Florida State. I don't know if there were some hard feelings there. From what I understand, Florida State wanted him back, but he decided to transfer in conference, go to Pittsburgh. And apparently from the moment he stepped on the court for pregame shoot-around on Wednesday night, he was talking some smack, saying, hey, this is my building. I'm going to be here all night long. You guys are going to have to worry about me. Safe to say that did not happen. He did not make a single field goal, had just 2 points, both came at the free throw line, was 0-4, got blocked by Taylor Bowen, I think twice. Bowen let him know about it on at least one of those. And he got absolutely schooled by Malik Ewan, who let him know, hey, I'm your replacement, and I am much better than you. As Ewan went for, 18 points and 13 rebounds, something absurd like that. And so from what we can tell, obviously we have no idea because I wasn't there. Dustin was in the crowd, but he wasn't, right there in the action. Florida State.
It happened on my side. I was right there.
There?
Yeah.
How do we not get video? How are we not getting video?
Well, I was on my second tall boy.
Hot dog?
And I was watching. No, I didn't have any hot dogs, just 2 tall boys. But
jeez, you're a plaster. That's why.
So yeah, I was finishing my beer and I was watching the fight. And when I was watching it, I kind of thought in my head, I was like, man, I probably should record this. But I was like, eh.
Luckily for Dustin, I got the broadcast clip. Put that on Twitter. From what we could tell, Florida State was letting Cora know, hey, you're not welcome here anymore. This isn't your house. And probably some other things like Malik Ewan dunked the ball with a couple seconds left, already up double digits. I'm sure Pitt didn't like that. Then for some reason, Pitt's coach Jeff Capel got right in the middle of it all was pointing at Florida State players, and at one point even grabbed Alir Malouk, which at that point, that's when things started getting a little out of hand, because you put your hands on an opposing player. That's just not something you need to do. From there, Florida State tried to go in the tunnel, and Pitt almost followed them. It was definitely a fight is not the correct word. I said it was a squabble earlier today to someone. Like, yeah, squabble's the perfect description for what that was. The fans were, like you just mentioned, the fans are giving it to Pitt as they went back to the locker room. Looked like Cam Corn was pretty upset if the game had to be restrained a couple times. It's the most effort he showed all game. Yeah, it was definitely an interesting situation. For some reason, the ACC hasn't said anything about it yet, and it's been, 22 hours.
Almost,
so.
yeah.
I love it.
But I can't. I mean, it was a physical game, back
Very
and forth.
physical.
And I mean, you could tell from the get-go that Corin, he was playing with a little bit extra, especially whenever he was around trying to box out Jameer Watkins. I mean, even sometimes after the whistle, it seemed like he was throwing some very unfriendly elbows. Then obviously all the battles down there with Ewan in the post. And yeah, I guess that dunk at the end just set him off. But I mean, at the same time, Pittsburgh had just went and scored a garbage time bucket that didn't even matter. And then they were playing press on the inbounds pass. And with the way that game had already been going, some of the Pittsburgh assistant coaches they looked like they were yelling at Florida State players during the game.
Yep.
I don't know, man. Jeff Capel and his brother, I don't know. That didn't sit right with the way that they acted after that one. You would think that the head coach is going to take on, trying to diffuse that and not let that keep escalating. But I mean, he pushed it to an even higher level. And then you had to have the police escort them from the Florida State side of the locker room all the way back to the other side. And by that point, yeah, the fans were riled up and into it. And you had some people throw some stuff on the court in Pittsburgh's direction. I mean, that was as heated as we've seen it at the Tuck in a while. And I enjoyed the hell out of it.
Yeah, I can't remember. Really, the only situation I can remember that even got nearly close to that was my senior year. It was actually my last game there in the Tucker Center. Virginia Tech was on campus, and that was a mean assistant coaching staff. And they were saying some things about Phil Kofer's parents, which, if you know that medical history with those parents, it's just not something you do.
Messed up.
And Phil almost went after them. He probably should have, but he got held back before it got too out of hand. That's the only thing I could think that was even close to what we saw last night. That was an interesting situation, to say the least. Like Dustin mentioned, that was as physical as a game as I've seen in college basketball in a long time, especially that first half, which was ugly. That first half was a rock fight, a barn burner, whatever description you want to use for an ugly 20 minutes of basketball. That was the first 20 minutes. Both teams went into halftime shooting 27% from the floor. Pitt, I think, had 14 turnovers at halftime, which would have tied their season high for a game. Just an ugly, ugly first half. And then the second half, those first 4 minutes, Malik Ewan goes on a personal 8-0 run with some incredible plays. I mean, some of the best plays you'll see from a Florida State center. And Florida State was able to run away with it from there, win by 12 points, get themselves their first signature win of the season against a quad one opponent. Very physical, very, very fun game. It really was a fun game.
Yeah, Malik had that steal off the
baseline
inbounds half court. Ooh. And then took it and slammed it, and then came back and I think had a block on the next defensive possession. You're really, we know what he can do on offense, but to see some of the strides that he's made defensively, I know that was a little bit of a worry earlier in the year, and sometimes him getting into foul trouble. I think he's doing a much better job on that end as of late.
And he even finished that game with 3 blocks and a steal. And to cap it all off after the game, Florida State, they post their post-game pictures, and one of them was Corin and Malik Ewan just in the court. And then Ewan reposted on a story and put the clown emoji over Corin. Absolutely love it. That's the kind of stuff you want on your team.
I just like the feistiness. This team's got, I root for that kind of stuff, and I like them being a little edgy and someone kind of testing the waters with some other players like that. And they come with energy, man, and that makes me want to watch more after the last couple of years where it just didn't feel like it was worth it with just the energy that they brought.
I'm just hoping we can put a former FSU player on every ACC team, because now Florida State 3-0 in conference against teams that have a former Nole on them. Obviously
you could take it back to last season and make it 5-0 or No, 4-0.
They sweep Syracuse last year
Ooh,
with
I
McLeod.
forgot about Naheem
That's
McLeod.
what I was saying. That you got
he's
Syracuse with the
he's
team,
so
obviously
irrelevant.
Miami, and then Pittsburgh.
Yeah, they beat Syracuse last year in the one game they played. So that would be another 3. That's 6-0.
So what? Florida State's only 3 wins in ACC play, all against former players
No, they had more than 3. Oh, you're saying this year?
this year. Yeah, this year.
Yeah, sure enough. Granted,
That's all you need.
Naheem didn't touch the floor, I don't think, in that Syracuse game.
It's still motivation.
No, for sure.
Yeah, motivation. They've got a good schedule coming up too, right? Where Florida State could go on a run here potentially.
Yeah, so their next 7 games, they're home against Georgia Tech on Saturday. Georgia Tech is 8-10. They play then next week. Next week will be a little interesting because it's that little mini series where you go to the West Coast and you're playing at Cal and at Stanford. Cal is 8-9, one of the worst teams in the ACC. Stanford, a little bit surprising that they're 11-6. They'll probably be 11-7 by the time Florida State goes out there because they play Carolina on Saturday. But then you're home for Virginia Tech, who stinks. You go to Boston College, who stinks even more. You're home for Notre Dame, who could be an interesting challenge. And then you go to Wake Forest. I think Florida State's still better than Notre Dame and Wake Forest. That's a solid 7-game stretch where I think anything less than 6-1 is almost a disappointment. And you go 6-1 in that stretch. You're 18-6 to set yourself up for the final 7 games. Who knows how things could shake out from there?
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. We'll keep a close eye on it, but that was definitely entertaining last night, and I just like to see them play with that kind of passion, and they're entertaining. So sign me up.
Hey, want to know when I go to the game in 2020?
Yeah, so go to every single game now.
Yeah, now you have to go to every single one.
12 o'clock on Saturday is. Oof.
It's okay.
Is it really a noon game?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, it's gonna be rough, but excited for you to be there and get you a hot dog and a couple more tall boys. But that's gonna do it for this week's episode. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us. Before you leave, I think we're about to hit 100 likes, but definitely go down there, hit that like button too, and we're like 3 subscribers away from 15,600. So definitely hit the subscribe button. We're putting out tons of content there, and we're going to be live a lot more too as well throughout this off season. Hang with us through this dry period. If we're able to be somewhat of an entertainment and not look too scary for you guys right now, I promise things are going to get better because there's going to be a lot more things happening across the football program, and also too keeping a close eye on this basketball team that is showing some really good fight. So that's going to do it. Thanks for watching. We will see you next week on Hear the Spear, and have a good rest of your week. Thanks for watching.